This chapter introduces the concept and the techniques of pointers. Pointers are objects that point to other objects. In particular, pointers point to memory addresses where values are stored. In this first lesson, I want to simply introduce the concept and the idea of pointers, and in the next lesson, we'll learn more about how to declare and initialize them in detail. Let's look at a program we wrote back in the chapter on functions. The swap function swaps two values. To do that, we had to use the reference operator, the ampersand, so we could pass the parameters by reference. You see the ampersand before number 1 and number 2 in the definition of swap. Let's run that program again just to remember how it works. So if we enter 12 for number 1 and 24 for number 2, number 1 becomes 24 and number 2 becomes 12. The only way we could do that was by passing an address of a variable, actually two addresses of the variables, to the function so that the function could work with the values directly in the memory address. Pointers are very similar to that in that we are working directly with memory addresses. Let's look at a couple of simple examples. First, let me comment out the code from this section. Before we begin with pointers, though, let's take a look at references and reference objects a little bit. When we create a variable, we declare it and then initialize it with the value, either in one statement or in two statements. Just declaring the variable reserves a place in memory for the value. We can view that memory address using the address of operator, sometimes called the reference operator, but always just an ampersand. So it's either the address of operator or perhaps the reference operator, since you create references with that character. So if I display this, I will see the address right here where the value for number is stored. We need that when we create pointers. Let me demonstrate. As I said earlier, a pointer points to an object. In particular, a pointer points to a memory address where a value is stored. So let's create a variable with a value. We'll say number and assign it the value 1. Pointers are created using the asterisk before the variable name. Sometimes we use the prefix PTR to signify that a variable is a pointer variable. Pointer variables are always assigned memory addresses when the pointer is initialized. So to create the pointer number, I have to use the asterisk and assign it a memory address, in this case the memory address of number. Now if I try to display the pointer itself, what I will get is the memory address where number is stored. That's what I assign to it. So a pointer variable displayed on its own will always display a memory address. If we want to display the value that's stored at that memory address, we have to use the asterisk again. The asterisk is called the dereference operator, and we are dereferencing the pointer so that it will show the value rather than the memory address. So now if we run this little program, we'll see that the first cout statement displays the memory address where the value for number is stored, because that's what the pointer is pointing to. And then by using the asterisk, we are dereferencing the pointer and we're displaying the value that is stored at the memory address the pointer is pointing to. That is how pointers work, at least pointers to variables. There can be pointers to functions and pointers to other objects. Let's look at one more example. Let's do a string. String name equals Jane. Then we'll create a string pointer, pointer to name, and we assign it the address of name, a reference to name. Then we'll cout the undereferenced pointer, or just the bare pointer, and then we'll display the dereferenced pointer. Let's build and run. So skipping the first two because we've already seen those, here we see the address where the value Jane is stored. This is the address associated with the variable name. That's what the pointer is pointing to. And then by dereferencing the pointer, we see the value Jane that is stored at that memory address. I wanted to start out simply because lots of people find pointers confusing. So these two simple examples are showing you just the bare basics of how pointers work. In the next video, we'll discuss more about declaring and initializing pointers.